if the teacher's like standing right there talking to you, asking you questions, asking other people questions, it's more movement. So you get it. You kind of have to think. What if you asked me that question? What if you asked me a question like that?
Mr. Brooks uses a lot of examples in his teaching, and that's what helps me to understand it. His examples, his metaphors.
I like the subject a lot, and so when a teacher can really stand up there in front of the class and lecture really well, I enjoy it.
My approach is to do a delivery and a presentation, but not just that I want to pull students in, and sometimes I do it more effectively than at other times, but to question them and always try to, as much as I can as an instructor, make a connection between the ideas I'm presenting or the issues I'm presenting and their own personal lives.
Berkeley High School in Berkeley, California, is a community of over 3,000 students.
As a teacher,
Wendell Brooks teaches 9th grade government and history.
Well, what does it mean?
Today's social studies class focuses on how ideologies can influence society.
Anyone have an idea?
Students will define the concept of ideology from their own individual perspectives, and then participate in a focused discussion of the ideology of democracy. Then, students will compare and contrast competing political ideologies from the post-World War I era.
Part of my goals and objectives of this particular lesson is to help students understand that when we study certain periods in history, particularly the period between World War I and World War II, and fascism and Nazism and socialism and communism and the issues involving the Cold War, these are terms that come up over and over again in modern history. Also to understand how these are not just terms, that they are interpreted and translated in real-life ways, and they really direct the way in which a society will move. Today, we're going to look at some of the ideas we've been talking about for the last several days. Ideologies. And I want to start off by asking one of you. In fact, let me start with Mr. Cohen. What is an ideology?
It relates to how people, a group of people, a government, how they run their country, or
okay,
Nazism is an ideology.
Nazism is an ideology. Why?
When Hitler came to power, it's how their country was run, what they thought was correct, and how it should be done. What else would you add to that, Miss Brick?
Is it kind of like your belief, and it's not just your idea, but you believe in it so strongly that you want to do something about it?
Do something about it, and that it might be embedded, as you say, a part of government. An ideology, to be an ideology, has to be believed in strongly. It carries with it an aura of ultimate truth. One of the examples sometimes I give, some of you in your ethnic studies classes have had the word racism. In fact, it's not on your list, but that's okay. How many of you have had to define racism in class? Chelsea, what is the definition of racism?
The belief that you don't like a certain race or nationality of people just because of the color of their skin.
Just because of the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anyone else have an example of, let's say, using racism? Sam?
Racist people usually target one culture that's different from them and try to do something so that they're not equal.
Why would they do that?
Because they don't think that they're equal.
But why would a person not think that way? Would you do that?
No.
No? Anyone have an idea? Tabitha, what is your idea about this?
Maybe it's the way they grew up or the way they were taught with their parents, their living situation, where do they live, how are they growing up. They're taught differently, they think differently than the way that we think here, where nobody at Berkeley High is really racist. We're really culturally diverse, I guess.
We're not really racist, but are we do we have an ideology about being from Berkeley?
Yeah, in a way, I guess we do. Berkeley's a very, I don't know how to say it, it's town. I mean, it's a lot different than the rest of like the world.
The reason I'm asking you this, how many of you have not had the experience of being somewhere, just in California, or maybe in the Midwest or in the South or back East, and you look around and you say, there's no cappuccino, no espresso, no coffee lattes. Well, in Berkeley, we have everything. And now that's an attitude. I mean, that's not dangerous. But when you begin to think about how ideologies work, if I have a sense of, I am from Berkeley, I live in Berkeley, we have a special culture here, we're special, unique people, we're different from all the other people in California, we do things differently, we think differently, and we need to make sure that we create a protection for that, which we have. And there may be people who say, we have to organize a committee to protect the sanctity of Berkeley. Now, that probably would not happen. I'm sure it would not. But you can begin to see how people translate their feelings and their ideas into political movements, into some sense of justification for what it is that they do. And that's part of what all of these ideologies at the end of the day are all about. It's also important to point out that if you believe in something very strongly and you believe that it's the truth and you believe it very narrowly, it also means that you probably are going to behave in ways that will reflect your ideology. Remember, what did I say about elementary school? Every single one of you. What's the first thing you did when you, in kindergarten or first grade? The teacher had you all stand and do what?
Say the national anthem.
Or the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Yeah. Why do that? Kenneth? Why put your hand, you play basketball. Do all the games begin with the Star Spangled Banner? The professional games?
Most of them, yeah.
Why do they do that?
Probably show respect and honor to the United States.
Okay, but why in kindergarten and first grade? Yes, ma'am.
Is it to make people kind of patriotic for their country?
Exactly. We talked about one of the objectives of the leaders of the French Revolution was to create a sense that these people were French. They weren't just people from different parts of the province or different provinces. They were French. And one of the reasons that we have these exercises in school is to what? Expose you to the ideas that you ultimately, at the end of the day, are what? Americans. So how do we do that? And being an American is actually an ideology, isn't it? The lesson plan for the semester includes modern European history, and modern, of course, from the French Revolution. Part of my own approach to teaching is that undergirding all of the various periods of history, whether we're talking about individuals or we're talking about wars or we're talking about, revolutions or whatever, undergirding all of that are major philosophical constructs that make sense.